Okay. Let me change this. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yep, perfect.
All right. So hold on just 1 second. Move this down here. Okay, so it's called Black Health Rising, and I think the caption or the title will be Kids, Food, and School Lunch Programs.
Yep.
Oops. Okay. All right. So how do you want to start this?
You can lead, and then we can make it conversational.
Okay.
And I think we will talk about, what kind of nutrition values schools should be doing, including, they can still do a, low cost program with a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits. They can have a soy milk. Uh, so I think we can suggest that this is the way we feel is healthier options, and still cost will not go up. And I think it will require a paradigm shift in terms of how they manage their food, because if they want to give vegetables and fruits that are cooked or raw or soy milk, it will require different refrigeration, because when they give all this processed food, they don't require refrigeration, they don't require any kind of processing. They just come out of the wrapper.
Yep.
I
In a
think
pan and dump it in a pan, right?
so. I think I mean, again, I think we are just scratching the surface of the problem, but we will be honest, and we'll tell them that this is the future of our kids. I think, like you said, if they have a unhealthy food at home, and if they have unhealthy food at school, they are at disadvantage. I mean, I think there are a lot of middle class and upper class kids who eat healthy food at home, and when they go to school, many times they are not eating those processed food. While
Right.
some
Right. Now,
American kids, many times they're at home, they have processed food, and at school they have processed food. So
yeah. So maybe we can start with just how it looks now, and then move toward a solution.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Let's do
Okay.
that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'll start it off, and we can go from there. All right. So I'm going to click go live now. It's going to actually go live on one of my business page.
Yep.
And
Yep.
from there, it is being recorded. So I'll have to edit it. All this is being recorded now.
Okay.
I will have to edit it, and then I will send it to you. So here we go.
Sounds good. Yep. Yep.
Okay, it says preparing to. Oh, good evening, everyone. I think we're going live now. Here we are. Good evening, everyone. This is Meryl, and I'm here with Dr. Aajay Shah, and we are here for Black Health Rising. Welcome. Our subject for tonight is kids, food, and school lunch. And one of the things that we want to talk about this evening is exactly what is going on with kids and food and the lunch that they get in school. Now, I'm speaking specifically about the food that the schools provide, which is very often in the free and reduced lunch or snack or breakfast programs, which are provided and funded and supported and stocked by the USDA. It's a part of our federal government food management program. One of the important things I think to know is that the USDA, that's our US Department of Agriculture, they have a two-pronged purpose. They're here for two reasons. One is to help direct what people eat. I guess that's really their only reason, to help direct what we eat. But underneath that, they also have the mission of helping to support all the farmers so that the crops get sold and get moved out to the US population. The challenge is that a lot of the products that come through that program are not really super healthy, and they wind up getting pushed into programs like the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children, and they get pushed into the school lunch program, and they also get sent down to the like the food pantries also benefit from those programs. And a lot of what comes through those programs are highly processed cheeses and milk, and there's meat products and refined white flour products, just not the healthiest stuff. So that's what we're talking about tonight, is what do we do about that? How do we make sure our kids get healthy food when they're in school, and what we can do at home and how we can manage that going forward. So let's jump into that. Dr. Shah, what do you got to say on all this subject?
No, I think earlier we were talking and you were telling me that you came across a menu of a local school and you were shocked. And I think this is a common thing across the country, that when we look at the food which is served in the school, it's highly processed, like you said. It comes out pretty much of a packaged food. Many times they serve, a quickly made pizza with lots of cheese, lots of white flour. Many times they serve a lot of the juices. Many times even some of the vending machines have some of the processed food. And that's what I think I'm starting to get concerned, because kids are actually our future. And whatever values we instill into our kids, they're going to be adults in the future. And that's where I personally feel that our country has gone wrong. Over the last 30 or 40 years, we've been feeding our kids a lot of the processed food, and now they have turned into adults. And those adults, we can see, are becoming more and more obese and more chronic disease. So this problem of school lunch is not new. It's been going on for a few decades. And aftermath, we are seeing the effects of those programs. We are seeing the tragic effects today. And that's where I think your point is well taken, that if we make changes into our school lunches today, we will see the benefit right away with our kids, but we will see definitely a tremendous benefit when they become adults, because they will have those values and they will instill those values into their kids also. But that's where I think, Meryl, the question comes in. How can we do that? I mean, do we need a government policy? Do we need a local school board policy? Do we need parent association to force the schools? And I think the question is probably a $1 trillion question, because we have so many schools where we need to feed them. But at the same time, every problem, in my opinion, has a solution. Every problem has a solution if you think it right and if you put some resources into it. And that's what I think I ask you, Meryl, that what do you think? Now, before we go there, please tell us what was on the menu you saw in the school.
This was astonishing. And actually, I'm going to see if I can switch this so we're both on screen at the same time. This was astonishing to me. So a friend of mine sent me a copy of a school lunch menu. Now, I'm here in Wisconsin. This is the heart of cheese country, okay? This is the dairy state. And Wisconsinites are very proud of their cheddar and their Swiss and everything else, right? But this school menu, just for breakfast, every day for breakfast, it was either a sweet roll, a cinnamon roll, a Pop-Tart, a sugar bun, a honey bun, or something like that every single day. Multiple times in a week, there were pizza, pizza puffs, pizza rolls, pizza crusts, pizza sticks. There were chicken nuggets, just all kind of stuff that it's not healthy stuff to be feeding children. The other part was, what struck me, was that this is the same food that, okay, let's say, I'll tell you personally, if I ate honey bun, sugar bun, Pop-Tarts, all this stuff every day for breakfast, by 45 minutes after I eat that, I would be ready to scream, right? Just so wound up and so much energy that I couldn't release, because I'm supposed to be sitting at a desk as a child eating that, right? So I just feel like the food that we are intentionally, these are created menus. We are intentionally feeding these food-like substances, because in my opinion, they are not really food. They provide calories, but not much else. We're feeding these food-like substances to our children, and then we're expecting them to sit still and focus and concentrate and learn and be good citizens and kind to each other and everything else. I don't see how that can work. I saw a survey not long ago. I didn't do a deep dive on it, but it struck me as humorous. The survey indicated that the food most likely associated with people being in a bad mood was donuts. You know, so what are we doing to our kids and asking them to behave? And if in fact it's a lower income school where more of the children are on the free or reduced lunch program, what are we doing? We are putting those kids at a disadvantage by not feeding them appropriately. And we have the food to feed them appropriately. We have the food, but we're not giving it to them. We're offering them these highly refined products that just don't support their growth or their health or their ability to learn.
No, I think I agree. I think the menu is a shock to me. And when I compare the breakfast and lunch from Canada and Europe, I remember distinctly a graphic a few years ago where those three breakfast and lunches were compared. In Europe, actually, every breakfast plate has some kind of vegetable and some kind of fruit, which is to me, and I understand Europe, many countries are smaller and much easier to administer those kind of breakfast and lunch. But at the same time, if we have a will, we can do it. So I think if other developed countries can do it, why we cannot do it, one of the richest country in the world? And I think that's where discussions like what you and I are doing, Meryl, today can ignite a bigger talk to our politicians, our government officials, our school board members, when they are listening to this thing, that if we are feeding this processed high sugar food, how can we expect them to get all A's and B's? We cannot. And I think, and also in my opinion, not only it brings many chronic disease, it also brings many of the mental illness. And actually, if we remember the book by Dr. Joe Furman, Fast Food Genocide, according to Dr. Furman, he clearly says that the processed food is the reason for many of the ADHD and many of the depression, many of the violent behavior, many of the bullying. I think all those things happen because of the food we eat. So not only it causes the chronic medical disease, but it also causes many of the mental disease. And then we expect kids to grow up to be a model citizens and compete with the world. How can American can succeed when we are not even raising them right? You know, and many times, like you said, many of these kids come from disadvantaged home environment. Many times at home, unfortunately, parents are also feeding them processed food because processed food many times is cheaper, much easier to serve than make a fresh food when mom is working 2 jobs a day. So I think many of these kids, unfortunately, they never see a whole food in their whole day. At home, they're eating processed food. At school, they're eating processed food. So I think at least we can change the school where some of the policymakers can at least help the kids. And I think, like you said, many of these kids actually their primary meal are at the school because they get breakfast and lunch at the school. Many of those kids, like we learned from the COVID-19, when the schools were closed, many of these kids did not have food. So I think food is a major determinant of how our country is going to grow up from kids to the adults. And that's where I think I personally feel, Meryl, that if we create a program where there are a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, there is some kind of a milk substitute, whether it could be a soy milk or almond milk, whatever milk, if they have some oatmeal type product, and I understand that many times this will require a paradigm shift in terms of having a better equipped kitchen, having better equipped cooling system, refrigerators to store those fresh fruits and vegetables. It may require an extra person to serve, but the investment we are going to make from doing all those activities will have tons and tons of return in the future. I think right now we are taking a shortcut by giving this packaged processed food and pizzas and chicken and whole milk and other things. We are taking a shortcut thinking that it's easy to administer this kind of processed food, but in the long run, we're going to be spending tons of money into Medicaid and many of these mental illnesses, and many of the model citizens and the workforce will be also not as educated as we want because they're not getting the education they need, because they're not getting the nutrition they need. And that's what my question to you, Meryl, is that if you have to design a cost-effective program where school board or policymakers or government or USDA comes with their policy, I think it will lead to many of the lobbying, particularly the processed food and food companies, food manufacturers, many of the dairy farmers, many of the meat packaging industry, they will resist that. And what do you see as a solution, Meryl, in terms of how can we make this thing politically right, at the same time, not any party suffer?
Mm. I've thought some about this. It troubles me really deeply to think that there's a whole section, I don't even know what the percentage of our children in the population are being malnourished in this way, right? They're not starving, actually, but they are malnourished, right? You know what I mean? I think it's going to take effort on all the levels that you mentioned earlier, like your parent-teacher associations are going to have to come forward and voice opinions and say emphatically, no, we want our children to eat differently. We're going to have change at the local level, the state level, like the individual school board level, and the national level, to include the USDA. That is a tough nut to crack, for sure. People have been trying to break the grip that has on the school lunch program for a long time. Right now, there are some programs that are, like tapping their toe in the water. The roots are just beginning to fan out. One of them I was looking at is called Farm to School. And it's where local farmers have a direct relationship with schools. And the school is encouraged to spend part of their food dollars at local farms to get local produce, to teach kids about local farming, to encourage the school, like I said, to buy local produce. I'll tell you an interesting thing I just read the other night. School district where I am is involved in the Farm to School program. They report that they send their kids to the local farms and the kids get to see what it's like on the farm. I can tell you that appears to consist of a trip to pick apples and a trip to get a pumpkin. That appears to be the farm experience, which is a very watered down farm experience, to say the least. One of the other things that they are expected to do is spend, like I said, some of their food budget money at the local farm or with local farmers. They're encouraged to purchase produce, and fruit, vegetables, all of that from local farms. Let's say, for example, I'm going to give hypothetical numbers because I don't really remember exactly what they were for our school district. let's say they spend $3 million on food for the school district. Of that $3 million, let's say 300,000 was spent at local farms. And that's about accurate, 350,000 at local farms. All of that was spent on liquid milk. All of it.
Wow, wow.
Now, when you consider that most Black and brown children are allergic to cow's milk, right? 90 something ish, 80 to 90% of the population is allergic to cow's milk, can't digest it, causes other problems for us. I'm one of those people. Why would we be spending so much money on milk that is going to make kids sick? You know, so there's got to be a whole lot of re-education from the bottom up and from the top down. I think that's what it's going to take. And a lot of coordination, almost like a coalition of people working together to push this ball, this big rock up the hill in what feels like a driving rain. But it's critical. We look at this current virus that has turned the world upside down, right? For the last 18, 19 months, I don't know. We've been battling this, everybody knows what we've been going through. Unless you've been living in a cave on the side of the Himalayas, you know what's been going on, right? And to think that research is now showing that a whole food plant-based diet is one of the best protections we have to get through this acute illness of COVID-19 and these big chronic illnesses that we talk about all the time, you know, the heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, certain cancers, all that stuff, right? Amazing if we could start getting kids to eat healthy younger, get them to expand their palate beyond pizza puffs and chicken nuggets, and get them to experience carrots and apples and broccoli and kale and lettuce and tomatoes, everything, butternut squash, oh my gosh, you know, purple cabbage, oh, beets, oh, my goodness. But to prepare the kids now so their palates are open and accepting of these foods. And then by the time they that they don't ever have to deal with some pandemic that actually impacts them personally, that they don't get sick like that. But if they do, that their body has the resources to fight it off. And then as they age and they get to be the ripe old age like you and I are, right? That they don't have to deal with, they are not contending with diabetes or high blood pressure or any of those other ugly chronic illnesses that drain the life out of people over years. So I want to tell you, I'm going to take this on as my project. I am fired up about this. If we can get children to eat appropriately and healthy and take that home, and, you know, if we teach the parents the same thing, and as the kids age, they are learning that and continuing that, and it all gets built into their own like DNA, I'm going to call it. And then they have kids and they have kids. The world could be a much, much healthier place. There'd be no issues, or very much fewer issues, let's say, with those chronic illnesses, the obesity and the cancers and all of that. It's unbelievable. I'll put in one more thing. We know that in 2015, the World Health Organization declared all processed meat as carcinogens, right? Class 1 carcinogens. Yep. And we are still feeding our kids that mess in school. Hot dogs, bologna, lynx, pigs in a blanket, corn dogs. What are we doing? What are we doing? We know that stuff is cancerous, cancer causing. That's what we need to stop.
Yeah, I think Meryl, one thing I must say that you are right hitting the nail, because kids don't have any voice. They cannot vote. They don't have the dollars to spend for lobbying. They many times are not educated enough yet. They are barely 5, 7, 10, 15 years old. They don't have that much scientific background yet because they're still very young kids. And that's where they rely on people like you and me and their parents to make those decisions for them. And that's where I think I personally believe that it has to be a grassroots movement where parents and teachers know firsthand the effects of this food because they are managing the kids 6, 7 hours a day. And parents know the effects because they are with them all evening and all night. And I think that's where a person like you and me, we need to make this thing into a grassroots movement where teachers and parents demand from the policymakers that we are not going to tolerate this kind of food. And I think that's going to require a lot of education, a lot of hand holding because many times parents have a million things on their plate. There are many times, like I said, they are doing 2, 3 jobs. They don't have enough money. Many times they themselves are not very educated. They don't have resources to go and look up the things. Many times they don't have books to read. And that's what I think we need to see this problem of the kids many times actually is a problem of the larger role in the society. And I think that's where we need to just be addressing not just kids, but parents also. And I
Mhm.
think you and I are doing for adults, and now you are going to take up on the kids. I think this movement, even though it's in infancy right now, I can see the future where it's going to change. I think I see a good future for our kids. I really see a good future for our kids. We just need 1,000 Meryl Fury, probably 15, 20 in every state, and and just take up the baton and just push the buttons. And I think you are capable of Mary doing this thing. So I commend you. And actually, I'm glad you brought up this topic today because typically our topic is Black Health Rising. We talk about African American women and obesity, but we have realized that many of these young girls who are 5, 7, 10 years old, they are already obese even before they become adults. And I think that's the reason I think you brought up this excellent topic that we need to go to the root. We cannot just keep, fixing the problem when they're 50, 60 years old. We need to go when they are 5, 10 years old. So I'm glad you're taking up this topic, Mara.
Yeah, thank you. It's dear to my heart. It really is. Yeah. Well, we are right at close to half hour.
That's good.
Yeah. Great conversation. Thanks, Dr.
Yes,
Shah.
thank you.
Anything you want to say to wrap it up?
No, I think we'll be back in 2 weeks. And next time when we come back with Meryl, we're going to start giving individual guidance to all our listeners, viewers, followers, particularly to the African American women, in terms of how they can make small steps in their life from day one, once they listen to our live next time, in terms of the grocery shopping, in terms of the cleaning out their kitchen, in terms of some ready-made quick food recipes. We're going to start diving into providing them almost like a ready-made approach so they can start diving into utilizing. Until now, we have set the stage how bad the problem of obesity in African American women is. Now, starting next time, we're going to start getting into how we can help you as an individual, listeners and followers, to start changing their life from day one. So I'm excited for the next time. We're back in 2 weeks. Have a great evening, Meryl. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Sounds good, Dr. Shah. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night, everybody.